Hey everyone, welcome to Handing the Shame Back. This is the show dedicated 100% to the adult survivors in Aotearoa and across the world who have experienced child sexual abuse. We do have a trigger warning, and we have a trigger warning for a reason. We are talking child sexual abuse, and our amazing guests who come on the show do share their story. And the reason they do that is because it's good to have the silence broken, but equally you as the audience may hear something that just helps you make sense of your own. So there you go, that's the reason we do it. Right, in the meantime, I've got a wonderful guest for you on the show. He's Corey Boden. Obviously he's a survivor. He comes from the Bay of Plenty, the Mount as he calls it, and he's here to talk to us today. So welcome to the show, Corey.
Thank you, Gloria. It's a really good feeling to be sitting here with you in this moment, sharing this opportunity to openly speak about something that's had a huge impact on my life and many of the lives of some of the people I know here in Aotearoa, New Zealand. Yeah,
that's cool. And look, good on you. It takes courage, and as we know, Corey, not everyone wants to speak on a platform like this. Some people are just happy to tell a best mate. Some people are happy just to speak to a therapist. But the point is you're with us, and I guess just as little or as much as you're willing to share with us, whatever you feel safe to do, could you please just give us a little bit of history in terms of your story?
Cool. So first and foremost, I'm a 48-year-old divorced father of one 9-year-old boy named Josiah. But my story began in 1974. I was born in Auckland, New Zealand. I was adopted out, and then I was adopted by Rodney William Boden and Shirley Annette Boden. Dad was from West Auckland. My mother was from a beautiful town called Waihi. So my journey and my life began in West Auckland, essentially. And we moved down to this beautiful coastal city in the Bay of Plenty, as you mentioned earlier, called Mount Maunganui, which is the entrance to the Tauranga port, which is the second largest port in New Zealand, to Auckland. So I did all of my schooling in Mount Maunganui. I went to Arataki Primary, I went to Mount Maunganui Intermediate, and then Mount College. When I was 13 years old, my mother, she fell ill with cancer of the bowel, actually, to be precise. In less than sort of a year and a half later, she passed away from cancer. I was left with my father, no brothers and sisters. I was an only child. And then my father, a little wee bit later, he got skin cancer, melanoma, and died when I was 16 years old. So, yeah. So I had a bit of a double whammy at college. In between mum and dad dying, there were like these beautiful students at Mount Maunganui College who just came around me and started speaking life into the death that I just experienced through losing. Sorry, I'm getting emotional. Just give me a moment.
Everybody cries. That's expected, Corey. You're okay.
Yeah. So I had these beautiful people that just started loving me at school of all places. They invited me to church. I'd never been to church in my life. No church in either side of the family. No, no Christianity, nothing like that. Just sort of average, everyday working Kiwis, farming background, both sides of the family. So these people came around me, and in between mum and dad dying, I was showing love. I was showing support. And I was introduced to church, for the first time in my life at the age of 15, I believe.
Yep.
So that was good. That was good. What these people didn't know, what they didn't know, and what I wasn't in a position to openly tell anybody at school, even the guidance counsellor who essentially was put in place to
Yeah.
monitor.
Yes.
Yeah. It's sort of like just checking on me. His name was Richard Wigglesworth, actually, so a bit of a shout out to him. He was a very pivotal man in my emotional well-being at Mount Maunganui College during that time, and I'm extremely grateful for that man. What I didn't tell him back then, and what I couldn't verbalise to people other than my sort of like my tight five mates as a teenager, was that I'd had some run-ins with a man, a local man, down the beach, down our local beach. I grew up in a neighbourhood where we had a nudist colony, like a nudist beach.
Yep.
Yeah. So as teenagers, we were curious, of course, because we heard that there was nudity. So, of course, we'd go down there and sort of, yeah, I can laugh at it now, but I mean, back then, to be honest with you, I didn't realize what I was exposing myself to. I really didn't. I thought what I might have been exposing myself to was an introduction into the female anatomy, so to speak. I had no idea that later on, even just a couple of years later, that beach and that location would become a hub for the local homosexual community. So when I first started going to this place, I would have been 12 years old. When I was 13 years old, I would say that was the first time that I was approached by a man at this place.
Yep.
Beautiful beach. Yeah. And at first, I wasn't alone. I wasn't alone at all. I'd like to make that quite clear. There were 3 or 4 of us, on multiple occasions. But essentially, that's where I was groomed, if I can use that word, to like a subtle type of psychological coercion to to come back and sort of like see the sky, like one-on-one, so to speak. Yeah.
Well, we know grooming is a big thing, and if I showed you a 13-year-old now or a 12-year-old when you first started going down there, Corey, you would say he didn't stand a chance. I mean, as a child at that age, we don't have that cognition or that ability to understand really what those kind of psychological techniques are or how they're being.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, part of my reason for wanting to actually like step out in faith, I suppose you might say, and actually begin to share my story is that I have a 9-year-old son.
Yes.
Sorry, another emotional moment.
That's okay. You just breathe. You're doing amazing. Doing amazing. It's difficult.
So I have a beautiful son. You know, I only have one child, which is ironic as I was an only child. So, you know, he means the world to me, you know. He means the world to me, and I know he means the world to his mother. You know, I know that. You know, I acknowledge that. We're separated, obviously, as I mentioned earlier, divorced. So you know, we have different parenting styles,
Yep.
different perspectives on life in general, um, and that's okay. That's okay. You know, people are different. However, we've got this beautiful, beautiful little boy. He's stunning. You know, he's amazing. I meet a lot of people, you know, just in general, because I'm an outgoing, sort of outspoken person at times. You know, that can work for and against me. But my son is the epitome of empathy. I've never met a human being quite like him. What he has had to endure in the differences of opinions, the arguments and the fights between me and his mother over the last 8 years since we separated, or 7 years, sorry.
Yeah.
I'm the proudest father. I'm the proudest father on this planet, and I know, you know, all the dads love their kids. You know, yeah, I can't say enough about my son. So wanting to embark upon this journey, not only of self-discovery for myself through recovery, but also having the opportunity to step out in faith and just kind of like reach out, put it all out there so that people actually know, you know, I've had a hard enough life losing mum and dad, and the grief and the loss and the depression that brought into my life, the mental health issues. But on top of that, actually, I was sexually abused by a man in his 50s or 60s at, you know, the ages of 13, 14, and 15.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And look, Corey, I'm so sorry that happened to you. And clearly, this man knew exactly what he was doing. Um, and I
Yeah.
think, as a kid, as we looked at earlier, um, you, you don't stand a show really of debating anything with an adult who is determined to have you groomed and available to them. So I hope there's no part of you that feels responsible for any of it.
Oh, you know, that's a really good question, and it's a good point, Gloria. In my teenage years, especially my mid-teens to late teens, yes, I felt 100% responsible for allowing another adult who, when I first met, trusted, to essentially cross some boundaries that were unknown to me at that point in my life. I did blame myself and held myself responsible, so to speak. Probably even into my late 20s, I would safely, you know, say. Uh, the hardest part was losing some of my best friends as a teenager, the ones that knew where I was and actually even knew who that man was. You know, like I had some of my friends wanting to go down there and hurt this guy, but I was saying, well, you know, I think he's just like a lonely old guy, you know, who I hear myself say that and I'm sort of cringing at my justification processes.
No, I think, and I've got something for you now, Corey, because you're going to smile at this. You wonder where your beautiful boy gets his empathy from? Hello, mirror.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
look,
I don't hear that very often, Gloria.
No,
Yeah.
I just think at the end of the day, again, if we had a picture of you as a child, as a 12-year-old, you would, if I showed you any photo of a 12-year-old kid, you would say, that's a kid. What
Right.
does a kid know at 12?
Yeah.
And the point is, you were also coming into that year where mum got really sick, mum then passed, and then you had dad start to become unwell as well. So, to be fair, Corey, there was a part of you that was possibly feeling quite traumatized and grieving already. This guy knew
Yeah.
what he was doing when he chose you.
Yeah, and it's hard looking back because my auntie, my mother's sister, Yvonne, right? Yvonne, her and her husband, like they moved over here from this beautiful, beautiful place called Whangamata. So if you're out there and you're unfamiliar with Whangamata, Google Whangamata, New Zealand, and Mount Maunganui, New Zealand. My auntie and uncle moved over, and they took me under their wing. And I've never uttered one word about this situation or the silence that I've kept, especially with my family, both sides. I suppose there's a part of me that feels like they wouldn't have believed me, even now at the age of 48. In fact, there are probably people out there that know me and they'll be like, nah, no way. Um, but I was able to disguise the way that I expressed my frustration, my anger, my confusion, because I was so, so focused on sport, you know? Um, Surfing, skateboarding, and soccer were my three sports in particular. Um, and that gave me a release of energy, pent up energy, nervous energy, anger, frustration. I could, just enter into a headspace and an emotional space whenever I could play sport. And some of my best friends to this day were were the boys that I grew up with in my neighborhood. I won't name them openly. I wouldn't want to embarrass them, but funnily enough, I will say one thing about that. One of my very best friends, who I was best man for at his wedding, ended up taking his life, committing suicide.
because
And
because of
I
the
wasn't there for him. I wasn't there for him emotionally. We'd fallen apart. No, I don't feel responsible or guilty or anything like that. But it can happen, people. Grown men can take their own lives if they have unresolved hurts and pain and shame from the past.
yes, and you raised a couple of really interesting things, Corey. So thank you so much. It's really interesting, and I want to take you down a path.
Yeah, feel free.
You, it's more likely that a child or teenager will not tell anybody of what's going on for them. Just know that. It's
Right.
more typical for a child or teenager to not disclose.
Right.
The conditioning and the grooming that they have received from the abuser is quite powerful. So, first of all, know that. Secondly, your whole life changed. Your wonderful auntie and uncle came and lived with you, but you weren't overly close, as in you hadn't spent years living with them prior to that. There was no way you were potentially going to say anything to them.
No.
And
No.
then the other thing is protecting yourself through this is key. And Look, had you confided in people, chances are as you still feel today, and you are not wrong, so often we are not believed. And the reality is, Corey, it's because of two things. One, people don't want to accept that it happens. But
Yeah.
secondly, if you put an adult and a child together in front of other adults, tell me what percentage of people would believe the child over the adult.
Yeah. I hope that's a rhetorical question.
In Australia, they've done some stats in Australia recently, it's a third. So
Right.
even today,
33.3% recurring.
100%. So,
Mm.
we can't beat ourselves up and feel guilty because we never spoke, because it wasn't likely that we ever could speak. So
Yeah.
if there's any part of you holding on to not speaking, I'd just love to send some love and mana to that beautiful part, because very unlikely that you would have spoken. So please forgive
Yeah.
it. Mm.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a really beautiful reality check. Um,
Mm.
in general, I'm going through a season at the moment that I can only recall. Sorry, only maybe perhaps define as a restoration period.
Oh, I love it.
Um,
Tell me about this restoration period. Survivors listening, aren't we lucky? And this is gold right here. Thank you, Corey. Restoration, go.
that's a really good word, because in churches from the 1980s through to the 1990s, there was this allegory, or this gem, this pearl of wisdom that used to float around the churches, which was refiner's fire, like God, or the universe, if that's your higher,
You've just frozen
no matter
away.
what your face. Sorry, I just another phone call, crazy. So another just to try and paint a picture. If we imagine liquid gold, and the dross, or the impurities float to the surface, right? Anything that's hot with heat rises. Um, so essentially, in my life, like, what I've realized or come to understand is that no matter what I face in life, there's always an opportunity for refinement in my attitudes, my mental thought processes. I'm forever having to check what I say to people, what my motives are, um, and the efforts, at least from my perspective, to better myself. Always like moving forwards, onwards and upwards towards the surface, and in the process fighting my way through all of that dross, or all of that impurity that inevitably comes through every refining moment, including this one, and every refining opportunity that I have to grow as an individual in my life. I'm grateful that I've been doing and working a 12-step program for the last 3 years. I'm clean and I'm sober today. I essentially am delivered of my addictions, And I really struggled because they were my coping mechanisms.
Of course.
I used to love going to pubs and nightclubs, drinking, drugging, and like any wishful or hopeful young man, taking a young lady home at the end of the night, right? And I spent years doing that, my 20s and even into my 30s. I am 48. Let me remind you all, okay? I'm 50 in 2 years' time. Um, but I still make mistakes. I'm still impure, imperfect. However, the difference is at this point in my life, I understand what's good for me and what isn't good for me. And that's where the gold or the treasure, or in New Zealand, right, the taonga, the treasure, really, really resides. It's in the refining process of when I first wake up in the morning, how I think, whether I'm grateful for the small things that I have in my life that are working, and even the things that aren't working in my life, because there's plenty of those right now. Um,
So there are a couple of things, and I'm not going to let you off the hook. And so a couple of things. First of all, you may be 48, but man, I want to have a chat with you later about your skincare. You look incredible. That's
yeah, and yeah, thank you. Yep, I
yeah,
hear that all the time, so I'm going to
yeah.
accept that.
Take the
Thanks,
win.
Gloria.
Take the win.
Yep.
The second point I want to raise with you, and I just want you to breathe through it.
Yeah, okay.
I think, please, I think you're an incredible survivor, Corey. I think you put a lot of focus on refining and improving self. There is a part of me, though, that wants to gift you and beautiful survivors watching, take this on board, please. Because of what happened to us and Corey, there is a part of us that will find it incredibly difficult to care for or love ourselves.
Yes.
Corey, my concern is, yep, you're all about getting better and better and being the best version of you. I want to
Cool.
give you a little bit of a hall pass and say, pull your head in, love who you are right now. Because if you could see what I can see and what our beautiful survivors can see, you wouldn't stop smiling.
Thank you. I mean,
No, I
that's
haven't.
so humbling. That's so humbling, Gloria. That's. I mean, have a look in the mirror. I mean, that's beautiful. What a beautiful thing to say.
Take the win, okay? Just take the win. It's
Yeah, no, I do. Okay, I accept that. I accept that
yay!
wholeheartedly. Okay, I'm
Okay,
smiling. I can see myself smiling.
good. All right. Now,
Yeah,
Corey, the thing is, we are conditioned as survivors to be the wrong ones, to be the ones that didn't do enough to stop it, to be the ones that somehow got it wrong because it happened. So, what I'm not hearing and what I want to give you and our beautiful survivor family watching is this. Put the put the ownership and the onus where it belongs, man. Give it back. This show, my whole thing is handing the shame back. Corey, you're handing the shame back. Let go of what doesn't belong to you. Amen. All right.
amen, Gloria. Amen. You preach it, sister.
so so look, I don't want to disrespect you, and I don't want to take away from what you were trying to achieve, but I just have to give you the gift of truth, and that is, if you could see what we see, you would cut yourself some slack. So, Corey, moving on a little,
Yes.
What has helped you in your recovery? I'm not talking from alcohol and drugs. I mean, in terms of your recovery from this trauma, from this child sexual.
Awesome. Yeah. This is that the answer to that question is the whole reason why I'm not sure if I disappeared there for a moment because I keep getting notifications like you said, but
No, you didn't disappear. We've still got you front and center.
yeah, so look, that's my reason for reaching out to you. I want people out there to know, whether they're male or female, that secrets keep us sick.
Secrets make us sick.
They make us sick, and keeping them keeps us in this cycle of perpetual negative mental attitude thinking, and also closing doors. If I were to hypothetically just ask you to open your mind for a moment, the more that I have personally started to ask myself questions about why I am the way I am, and I'm struggling with the things I've struggled with for over 20 years now, the more I've come to the realization that because I had closed and locked the doors to those things away in the deepest, most recessive parts of my mind and my innermost being, because I couldn't deal with them. So I just pushed them away to the too hard basket. Yeah, yeah. So as soon as I started being honest, not only with myself, but others about what I've been through and why I might be a little bit different or even a little bit weird or wacky,
Oh, well.
to loud, loud, very loud, intrusively loud at times. But anyway, I'm learning. I want to say the answer to that question is being willing to confront my demons, being honest in the process of what I see when I look in the mirror, that I don't like looking back at me, and just being open to sharing the results of my own self analysis through this process. But the 12-step program offered by Alcoholics Anonymous or Narcotics Anonymous, I have to say, has been beneficial in me moving forward because I'm always accountable not only to myself, but to the other survivor, either suffering or either openly sharing their story as I walk with them.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. Thank you. Because I think we need to acknowledge, don't we, that sometimes as survivors, and audience, I still hope we've got you. I think sometimes as survivors, where our abuse ended, we then become self-abusive, and there's a reason for that. And so, yeah, so for Corey, it was, drugs and alcohol. For me, it was an eating disorder, and then just this false person. I didn't even know
Cool.
who I was. For others of you, beautiful ones watching, it could be all of that, or something different, or food could be an addiction, or gambling. But the point is, what that self abuse does is it carries on our need to escape from the reality, which is the truth, as Corey described it. The more we run, the harder it follows and fights.
Yes.
So, what was
Yes.
your pivotal moment, Corey? What was it that led you to, I've got to deal with this, man?
Right. I would say approximately 6 to 8 months ago, perhaps at the most, my son's mother came to me and said, "There's something that I really need to tell you. I feel like I've always been a little boy trapped in a girl's body, and that she wants to transition to be a man. This is my son's mother, my ex-wife.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Um, my son has a half sister who's beautiful. She's a beautiful, talented artist, you know, with, sorry, them or they, not she. I'm still adjusting to the pronouns and I do make mistakes. I apologize to any of you out there who may be non-gender binary or you know, anything of the like.
Just be
For
you,
me,
Corey. Yeah, it's
yeah, for me, it's all new, and what it did was propel me forward with a new sense of importance to actually not only let her know, but other people out there that I'm a victim, if that's the right word, or a survivor of sexual abuse. Now, I haven't really talked about a couple of moments when I was a kid, like my son's age and younger, where I was abused. I don't really want to go there because what I'm trying to do today is, you know what? No matter what we're phone call, no matter what we're facing in life, there is a light at the end of the tunnel.
so can I ask why you don't wanna go there
There is
knowing that you're
life after abuse, life process of coming to terms with what it means.
sorry, we're
Oh,
losing.
oh man, you just started cutting out. No, it's okay. I don't know if I was cutting out to you, but
Yeah,
a
you were.
few technical difficulties there.
Oh,
I think what you were just asking was why I didn't want to sort of go into it. Is
oh,
that what you
why
were?
you didn't wanna mention it, I guess. I'm just you don't have to answer it. I was just curious.
Sorry, 'cause- oh,
I
so my phone has just started cutting out, which is just so ironic. You know, I get 2 or 3 phone calls and then I'm so disappointed.
Okay, so that's fine. You don't have to talk about what happened when you were younger. I guess as we move
Cool.
um, to close, what advice would you
Yes,
what advice would you give to our beautiful survivors, however they identify themselves? What advice would
brilliant.
you give to them?
First, first point: be honest with yourself before you even attempt to be honest with anybody else. Be honest with yourself. Second point: be willing to take a risk in trusting somebody, even if your trust has been betrayed time and time again. Step out in faith, out of your comfort zone, and just give it a go. Give it a go. Third point: be open enough to the universe and to everything that's good in life so that you don't miss out on any beautiful opportunities, not only to grow and to prosper, but to reach a new level of happiness that you've never experienced in your life before.
Oh, that's so beautiful. That's so beautiful, Corey. And it's so great to have you on and see your mana and feel your presence and know truth when we see it. So kia ora. Um, just as we
Older.
please stay where you are. Just as we're closing our audience, um, you know, sometimes we get people on the show and they're sharing their stories, and you can just see the genuineness, and Corey's going to laugh at me, and the empathy in people. And I think we're very gifted today.
Oh, yeah.
What I've really enjoyed about Corey is, he had significant losses in his life, and yet
Yeah.
his number one joy and his number one focus is his beautiful son. So I just think
Beautiful boy.
that's a miracle. So, beautiful survivors, just as we're saying goodbye, I just want you to know, I see you, I stand beside you, and I believe you.